bringing you in-depth discussion from one of the rad groups of online writers covering the Edmonton Oilers. Are you ready for Oilers Overtime? Join us as we talk news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and more. All featured on one of the most glorified teams in the NHL. From the great one to the next one. From the boys on the bus to the decade of darkness. This is Oilers Overtime.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of THW Oilers Overtime with the Hockey Writers. My name is Jim Parsons. We don't have everybody with us, but we got all the important people. Don't tell Brian I said that. Julian Mangilo's with us. Julian, how are you?
Could be better. I just finished watching the Leafs blow a 5-1 lead and lose in overtime. So hopefully the Oilers game tonight will be a little bit better than this one.
Well, yeah. You want to say it's San Jose, and then you're like, as people watch this, they'll know what the results are when they see this because it'll go up tomorrow as we're recording tonight. But yeah, you would think the Oilers should be able to beat San Jose, but you never, ever know. Colton Pankey is with us as well. Colton, how are you?
I'm good, Jim. Like Julian said, just hoping the Oilers game goes better tonight than the Leafs one did for him.
Well, the Oilers have been playing well. I mean, this is going to be 5 in a row if they win tonight. They need to be winning these games because the teams ahead of it and behind them are winning too, right? Vegas is won 4 or 5 in a row now. Los Angeles is still playing pretty good. So the Oilers have to be winning here to keep their spot in the playoff mix. And if they want to get second in the Pacific Division, they really got to turn it on. So they're playing well at the right time. Do you think, I guess we should ask this question again, people are going to see this video and already know the results here, but Julian, do you think that they're going to pull out the win here against San Jose tonight?
I think it'll be a little bit of a barn burner. I have a feeling it'll be a little bit of a back and forth kind of lot of goals. But I think they'll be able to get the win. It might not be the cleanest one, but none of them lately have been that clean.
Well, the Anaheim game was good.
That was the only one. Yeah.
Yeah. 6-1. I mean, I did write an article the other day just talking about how they need to be better than just getting by. You know what I mean? Like the Oilers are finding a way to win, but they needed a game where they just decisively pulled it out. And that Anaheim game was that game for sure. They should be able to do it against San Jose. They played pretty well against them last time. I think it was Tomas Hertl that really only got the other marker there. Colton, what do you figure of this game on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of games that they need to win throughout the rest of the season. And so I think they will, but I mean, they've kind of caught me by surprise a few different times this year, but I think they've been playing pretty well lately, especially that Anaheim game, like you mentioned. So I do think that they'll pick up 2 points tonight.
Well, the good news. Go ahead, Julian.
No, I was just gonna say the other thing too is like they like you said, they need to get points out of these bad teams. Like they beat the Arizona, they beat Anaheim. They're expected to beat those teams, right? It's those ones that they kind of get into, a 9-5 game against the Flames. Like those are the games that things need to tighten up. And they have a tough stretch coming up ahead too, with a bunch of good teams that they're gonna have to play. So tightening it up defensively, I think, is gonna be something that they are going to need to start working on, especially in a game against San Jose. And that's where it's going to start and bleed into the rest of the next few weeks.
I think winning on the road here is important too. Like they are a very solid home team. They've been excellent at Rogers Place, whether it's the Ben Stelter factor or it's just the fact that Rogers is really comfortable for them now. They've been really good there, but they haven't been wonderful on the road. They played a good road game against Anaheim. They need another good road game against San Jose. This Calgary game you're talking about, Julian, I believe that was an emotional game that just got out of hand for Edmonton. They were sucked into the idea of the Battle of Alberta. They wanted to play run and gun hockey, and they just went away from everything that was working for them. I don't see them doing that against San Jose tonight.
No.
Colton, are you at all concerned with Leon Draisaitl? I mean, he kind of had that game against Anaheim. Looked like he sort of injured himself a little bit, was ginger during the third period, but didn't leave the game, ended up scoring his 50th goal. We'll talk about that in a minute, but he's playing tonight from what I understand. He took the optional practice this morning and should be in the lineup tonight. I haven't heard anything else. What do you expect from him tonight? Totally normal Draisaitl or maybe a fewer minutes?
I mean, maybe a bit fewer minutes, but I'm not concerned just because, especially with that game getting out of hand, I don't think, regardless of him chasing 50 goals, I don't think coaching staff leaves him in if something's seriously wrong. I think probably more of like a bruise thing that he could still be dealing with a bit, but I don't think it's anything they're worried can get worse. Otherwise, there's really no point in leaving him in that last game.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I get he doesn't want to come out, and he did say in the interview after, he's like, look, a lot of guys are playing through stuff like this. It was really not an option for me to leave this game, especially if he's chasing 50, although he'll never say that's why he didn't leave the game. I heard, I don't know, did either one of you, Julian, or did you guys catch anything about Evander Kane? I know they were talking about him before the game, and he was on the ice for the optional too. I know they're talking about him because of San Jose, but Was he injured or something? Was something happening there that we didn't? I didn't hear about?
I never seen anything pop up for me.
It just sounded like, I think it was Tony Brar was talking about how Woodcroft said Kane and Draisaitl were both good to go tonight, and I hadn't heard anything of the fact that Kane might not be.
So I guess it's not that important.
Yeah, I just was a surprise to me. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Cole, what do you figure with Draisaitl here? He's got 50 points, 50 goals, 101 points. He's right in the conversation. I guess he's not technically in the conversation for the Hart because everybody's focused on Matthews. Got Johnny Gaudreau. Huberdeau got his 100th point tonight. McDavid. Where does Draisaitl sit here? Do you think he's got a shot at this?
I think in most seasons, yes, but like you said, all those names, like this is a crazy year for the Hart. I can't really remember when there's been this many guys in the conversation. Like you brought up Gaudreau, even Shesterkin with the Rangers. I know he's tailed off a bit lately, but I do think, and Oilers fans won't like to hear this, but I do think it's Matthews to lose this year, just with how many goals he's scored lately. Like I mean, we haven't seen anything like this in some time, maybe since Ovechkin, that 65 goal year. So he's just been on fire lately. So I do think it's his to lose right now.
Okay, so let's ask the Toronto guy, Julian. Are you on the Auston Matthews train too? To me, I'm thinking, okay, he's running away with goals. Even if Draisaitl doesn't even get close to him, which I don't know that he will. But I could see Draisaitl getting 60. But he's a big difference in points, right? Between McDavid and Matthews, wherever Matthews is at now. I don't know what he got tonight, but does that matter? Do you still give it to Matthews? Or are you leaning towards someone like McDavid? Where do you sit with this?
Well, I'm just looking at
the guy.
Sports Center had Matthews as the Hart favorite right now at odds -110. So McDavid was behind him next. But I think it's like Colton said, it's Matthews to lose. Just I think there's a little bit of recency bias built in there just because of the goal scoring pace that he's been on. But just backtracking on that pace, like he's had like 47 goals in like 49 games or something, like his last 49 games. So the goal scoring pace is just something that we've never really seen. The point differential, I think it's less about the points now and more about just who's been the most effective player in the league. And I guess the most important to their team. I know McDavid and Draisaitl sometimes can take away from each other because they're always, they're expected to be that good and they kind of clash with each other to get points. But I think even Huberdeau is a guy that, pops out of nowhere and he's, breaks the record for assists from a left winger and all that stuff. So like there's just so many guys in the mix right now. I just think that Draisaitl could probably catch Matthews maybe in the goals category because Draisaitl could score a couple a night too. I just think that like Colton said, it's Matthews to lose right now. And I don't want to sound like a homer, but I got to go with Matthews.
Well, I am going to sound like a homer because I don't see Matthews as the runaway that you guys do. I think he's for sure in the conversation, absolutely 100% in the conversation. But I think there's a ton of people almost like cheering for Matthews because of the fact that McDavid and Hart and Draisaitl have already won one. But when you make the argument, and I'm not sure if you were making the argument, Julian, but when you make the argument that Draisaitl and McDavid play together, so maybe they're not considered as high quality candidates, they actually play less together than someone like Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner do, right? So I don't buy that for 1 second, right? Because everybody's got one. Huberdeau's got Barkov. Auston Matthews has Mitch Marner. Everybody who's ever going to win the Hart has probably got somebody who's helping them get there, right? And Draisaitl and McDavid play a ton on the power play or in overtime together, but they don't play a ton of 5-on-5 time together, right? So I don't know that you can make that argument. And I actually think Draisaitl should be way more in the conversation than he is. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's got 50 goals to Auston Matthews. I don't know how up to date the stats are on NHL.com are, but 54 for Matthews, 50 for Draisaitl. But if you look at the points, Draisaitl's got 101 and Matthews has got 92. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that says, okay, Draisaitl's way more in this conversation than people are giving him credit for. And
yeah, it's weird because he's not even, like we said, like Huberdeau's not even like he's Draisaitl slotted in behind guys like Huberdeau or even Shesterkin at this point. So I think that's a disservice to rank him where he is in the rankings just because he is playing so well, like you're saying. But I think if anybody on the Oilers is going to win it, it's going to be McDavid, not Draisaitl. I just think that McDavid is the better candidate than Draisaitl is to win the Hart. But I think it's going to be neck and neck till the last 12 games or whatever's left between McDavid and Matthews to see who's going to end up getting it.
Well, I'd almost even make the argument that you should give more thought to the idea that it's hard to even decide who the MVP on the Oilers is, right? Like when you've got Draisaitl playing penalty kill minutes, power play minutes, 4-on-4. I mean, he plays in every single situation for the Oilers, right? Matthews doesn't, not for Toronto. McDavid doesn't, not for Edmonton, right? They're both better defensive players than they've ever been at any point in their career. All three of them are. But Draisaitl is in there all the time. He's used in every situation. Like, I'm not saying Draisaitl should win it. I'm certainly not saying that, but I think he should be given a lot more consideration than he is. I don't know, Colton, do you believe that your ice slotting and where you're put and the positions you're in should play a role here?
Well, I think that Matthews too, like if you see all like the Corsi stats and everything, I know I've kind of been on those in the past for not loving them, but Matthews is playing great defensive hockey this year too.
Oh yeah,
and
they
that's
all
kind of
are.
what
Yeah.
also helps. Like, and just the even strength goals too compared to Draisaitl. It's not Draisaitl that he's been so successful in the power play, but even strength goals isn't close. So I think that factors in. But instead of the Hart too, like I always kind of prefer to see the Ted Lindsay just because it's voted on by the players, which I always think holds more I don't know, credit, I guess, than when the media guys vote on it, just because I think for the players, it's kind of more, it's telling them that other players believe they're the best. So that's kind of the one I'm excited to see. And I think, I still think that Matthews is ahead in that one, but like Julian said, there's still 12 games to go here and it is pretty close.
So just to on that point, Matthews has 40 even strength goals to Draisaitl's 29, and the power play points, Connor McDavid has 39, Draisaitl 36, and Matthews has 25. So I think that there's a lot to say about that too, just because most of their points, the Leafs are like the third lowest in the league in penalties drawn, so they're getting less power play opportunities. So I think that the fact that Matthews has played 8 less games or at least 5 less games, I don't know if it's 8 or 5, something like that, right in and around there, but leading the league in goals with less games played. And he would be probably right there for points if he had not had the suspension and that early season injury where he missed a couple games. So I think for those reasons, that's what's evening the playing field for everybody as they come down the stretch here.
Yeah, it opens up a whole new like there's so many cans of worms you can open up here. Like you can make the argument that Auston Matthews shouldn't be rewarded for being suspended for a couple games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could also make the argument that Draisaitl shouldn't be punished for being really good on the power play. Like there's a
Exactly.
lot of ways you can look at this, and it's going to be very, very interesting. And
But this is like the tightest Hart Trophy race I think we've ever seen, which is great to see because everybody's getting in on the action.
Like the fact that Shesterkin was such a favorite early on, and he's not really even in the conversation anymore, tells you how close this race actually is, right?
Usually there's like a clear runaway every year, at least like 1 or 2 guys. Like this year, there's quite a few
5,
guys.
6.
Like even Crosby, I know he won't win it, but like he's having a great year. There's so many guys right now that could be in the conversation.
Yeah, it'll be good. Just on a quick whatever, how many goals do you think Draisaitl has by the end of the season? There's 12 games left here, including the game tonight. He's at 50. Colton, let's start with you. What do you think he ends up with?
I mean, I guess it depends. Like we were talking earlier about this like injury he's battling right now, but 12 games, I think he's going to get every opportunity to get 60. I think he probably will hit 60 by the end of the season.
Julian, you think he hits the 60 mark?
If you're averaging it out, it's like a goal a game. You got 12 games. You're kind of like, this guy's pretty much good for a goal a game. So it's hard to say less than that, but I'd probably say he's going to, I think he's just going to miss it at like 59 or 58, something like that.
Yeah. I'm not going to I think he won't get there. He certainly could. Like, I mean, we all said this last year when McDavid got 156 games or whatever. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be somewhere like 56, 57, just because if he's got 50 now and they've played 63 games or whatever it is.
Games.
No, that's not quite right, but you know what I mean? Like he hasn't hit the goal of the game pace yet. So it sounds like a lot and it is a lot, but it's not the goal of the game. So I'm going to think he's somewhere in the 7 or 8 range for the final 12 games. All right. I have an interesting question for you guys it's not like a superstar thing. It's certainly not, it's nothing more than a depth question, but it has to do with the 2 defensemen who have really picked it up since the trade deadline for the Oilers. Brett Kulak came over from the Montreal Canadiens, and he's been really good. And Tyson Barrie, all of a sudden, has been really, really good. Both guys had a goal and 2 assists in the game against Anaheim. Colton, I'll start with you. Whose game have you liked better? What has been more impressive for you? The way that Kulak has come in and sort of seamlessly worked into this lineup, or the way that Tyson Barrie has sort of rebounded from I wouldn't say struggle, but he wasn't quite what Tyson Barrie was last year, and now he's picked it up.
Yeah, I think it's Kulak for me. I didn't know a ton about him when they had traded for him. So I think watching him in the few games that he's been here, like he's really impressed me. He's been a really just calm presence on the back end. And then obviously chipped in offensively last game too. So I think he's been everything and more that I was expecting at this point. So I've been really happy with him.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch. I love watching him skate. Hey, like he's got tons of good ability there. He's skilled with the puck. He does kind of put himself in a situation to get creamed every once in a while, which is a little scary because you never know. When he gets hit rocked and pretty good. I think there's 2 or 3 hits he's already taken since he's been here. I'm like, ooh, that looked like it hurt. Julian, what about you? Have you liked Tyson Barrie's development better since the trade deadline, or you like the way that Kulak's come in and played?
Well, like I said at the deadline, like I like the fit of Kulak in the lineup. I think he brings, that steady Eddiness to the game. And it's exactly what the Oilers kind of needed. I think people may have mistaken him to be a more physical player than he actually is, where he'll be physical, he'll block shots, but he's not going to go around just hitting everything that moves, right? Like he's not going to be a Josh Archibald on the ice, but he's been steady. I think I would give it to Barrie just because of how elevated. Well, I guess you can argue that Kulak has made Barrie better because of the breakouts when they're playing together. He's a little bit more free, but I think that Barrie's contributions are more important and necessary for the Oilers to go further because of they're going to need to. Like they're never gonna not have goals against, like just with the goaltending situation and the defense as it is, like they're gonna have to outscore their opponents. We know that. So I think Barrie's contributions to having to outscore the opponents are more likely the bigger contributions rather than having Kulak say that he needs to help stop goals against.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I honestly don't know which one I'm going to. I see like Colton's chosen Kulak and Julian sort of leaded towards Tyson Barrie. I really don't know. And I kind of am like, these two have been almost perfect for each other, right? Like they've been put on that third pair. They've both played better since they got here, although I can't really compare to what Kulak was doing in Montreal because I didn't watch the Canadians as closely. But man, it's something. Like I will go, maybe I'll lean towards Tyson Barrie only because the power play has started to click again and he has been the driver on it. And his timing is excellent, right? Ivan Bouchard is still playing well, but he struggled a little bit. And when that happened, we're all like, oh no, what's going to happen here, right? But then Tyson Barrie all of a sudden comes out of nowhere and starts playing like Tyson Barrie that everybody was hoping would, lead the quarterback to power play and lead it. And they're starting to score again. Outside of that Calgary game where it was just ugly for everybody, his numbers defensively have been pretty good too. So I've liked Tyson Barrie's game, and I think the timing of it is really good. Kulak for me has been excellent, and I've been very pleasantly surprised by it. But I don't think the Oilers were expecting him to come in and be a difference maker. I think they just wanted somebody solid that they didn't have to worry about, right? And the fact that he's done that and given you a little more is great, but you needed Tyson Barrie to do the things that Tyson Barrie can do. And so for that reason that he's doing it, I'm going to go with Tyson Barrie, but it's a close one.
With Tyson Barrie moving the puck too now, and you add Nugent Hopkins back on there. Now you have that playmakers opening up passing lanes, and it just makes that power play just so much better now.
Yeah. No, it'll be good. Okay. Just a quick little whatever, just to see if you guys have any opinions on this. So the Oilers, for those that don't know and they're watching this, have now signed 2 free agent college players. Ryan Fanti, the goaltender out of Minnesota Duluth, and then Noah Philp, the center from the U of A Golden Bears. Both pretty big signings. For people that don't know, I'll give you a real kind of quick rundown. Fanti's was 20, 12, and 4, with 7 shutouts, 1.83 goals against, 929 save percentage, about 6'3", really, really solid netminder. There were some people after him. The Oilers got him, was pretty cool. He should be kind of competing in the AHL with some of the guys that got down there just for some spots next year. And then Noah Philp's a right-handed center, 23 years old, got a range of skills, got a good shot. He's going to try out for Bakersfield too, at 8 goals and 11 points in 8 regular season games. But here's the kicker for me. He had 3 goals and 10 points in 4 playoff games this year. So he was really coming on here, and his brother Luke plays for Calgary, or at least the Stockholm team in AHL. What do you think, Colton, about the fact that the Oilers were able to get both of these guys? Because this is like Noah Philp was, I think at least 5 teams were after this guy, and Holland scouted him pretty good at Claire Drake there. We'd heard a lot about that. And then Ryan Fanti's a goalie that was people were interested in. Is it a good thing that the Oilers were able to get both of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think from what I'd seen on Fanti on Twitter, just even days before, like there was quite a few like well-known hockey media people that were saying a team is going to sign him and like he could be ready to go in a few years. Like it sounds like he's a really promising prospect. And then Philp, like you said, I know his brother Luke's in Calgary and he played Golden Bears too and then signed pro, which you don't really see all that often. I know the Oilers have that again in Derek Ryan. But he's put up some good numbers the last few years in the AHL in Calgary's system. And it sounds like they think he could even compete for a spot next year. So if his younger brother is able to do that in a couple of years for the Oilers, then yeah, there's plenty to like about it.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about both these guys. I mean, they could turn into not really NHL guys, but they're both going to compete for spots, and it should be interesting. What about you, Julian? You like the idea that this has been really, I think, only Ken Holland's only really the 2 college free agent guys that he signed. Big deal, no deal? What do you figure?
Well, I like it. I think it's, anytime you're bringing in any type of prospects with promise that, it's good for the organization. It creates competition, even at the NHL level. I think it's also great to see that these guys are willing to sign in Edmonton. It's not always a premier destination. You scout them, you pitch to them to come to this team. So the fact that they're willing to come here, I think it's a good sign. And, I think they've built a system here that wasn't always here before in terms of their prospects. It was very rushed, come through, in and out, and they don't really develop them as much. And I think that's changed. And I think that's probably why people are prospects are more likely to sign here now. And, Fanti's had great numbers. I really like when goalies come out of the college or NCAA route. I think they're more NHL ready, and you don't always have to have that. It's a little bit different for players having to play the college and then come into the NHL because of the game differential. They play so much more games at the NHL level than they do in the college level. But for goalies, it's a little bit easier to make that transition because you're probably not playing a starter's role anyway when you get to the NHL. So they're pretty close, 23, 22 years old. I think they can, maybe a year or two and they'll be ready. But I think that speaks a lot to where they think Skinner's at, and maybe restocking that pipeline in the net to compete with Konovalov down there and maybe Fanti now, and then have a Skinner promotion next season. So I think they're set up really well with their goaltending prospects for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch these guys and see how they progress. All right, we'll close things off, but before we do, let's quickly try to predict the score here. So as people watch this again, they're going to know the score already, but let's see how right or wrong we're all going to be. Colton, San Jose, Edmonton's on the road there. Played pretty well against them last time. They played pretty well against us this season. What do you figure the score is going to be in this hockey game?
Yeah, I think just with how well the Oilers are playing offensively lately, they'll have another big night there. So I'll say a 5-2 win for Oilers.
All right. Another nice, solid, decisive win after the one in Anaheim. What about you, Julian? What do you figure?
Well, I like the depth. I like the depth the Oilers have up front. I think, McDavid and Draisaitl are firing on all cylinders right now. So I'm going to go with 6 goals for them, and I'll take San Jose to score 4. I think just the goaltending's been a little bit iffy here and there. So Koskin's coming back from the illness and getting the start, which actually surprised me.
I was just going to say, is Koskin getting the start?
Yeah, he's the slated starter, which kind of did surprise me because he was sick. I thought, and then Smith got the win, so I thought they would go back to him. But I'm going to say 6-4 Oilers.
Yeah, I'm going to say it'll be a high score and affair. The Oilers will get at least 5 probably. I have this feeling that the stars are just starting to, they're like, this is it. This is our run. We got 10, 12 games left. We're going to start turning it on, and they play really solid down the stretch every year. So I have a feeling we could see 3-point nights from guys like McDavid and Draisaitl tonight. That wouldn't shock me at all. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing if a couple guys who haven't done a ton of scoring get on the sheet tonight. I wrote an article today about Jesse Puljujarvi. He scored 1 in the last game, and I'm kind of hoping, I know this sounds terrible to say, and I wrote in the article, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't score much towards the end of the season, because he's playing so well in so many other areas that if he starts adding a bunch of goals, it's going to be problematic for the Oilers over the summer. That said, you don't ever want to cheer for a guy to not score because it's bad news short term, but I'd like to see like Hyman, Kane continue to roll and that sort of stuff. But it would be nice if some of the depth guys got in there and started contributing too. So yeah, I'll say 5-2. That's going to be my prediction for the game. I don't think San Jose does a whole lot tonight, but we'll see. I could be wrong. All right, guys. Well, we're keeping short because as we finish recording this, the game is about to start in about 5 minutes. So we're going to make sure that we catch it. For Colton and Julian and myself, and Brian will be with us next week. By the way, Brian, I didn't mean it when I said you weren't. You're the key to the show. You make the wheels turn, buddy. We'll say goodnight and have a fantastic, enjoy the game, everybody. And when you watch this tomorrow, you'll know the results. For THW, Hockey Writers, this has been Jim Parsons and Oilers Overtime. We'll talk to you guys next week.